Yeah.
But I will hope.
All right, we're getting ready. We still have a little bit of time, so that's good. Hi, I'm State Rep Carole Fiola, and this is one of our walk-in talks with State Rep Carole. And tonight, we are at Oak Grove Cemetery, and I have with us here not only the people who are joining us, but Gale Powers, who has pretty much been a self-educated expert in all of the residents here of Oak Grove Cemetery. And so we're going to learn about all the famous Fall Riverites that reside here. You think so, Gale?
I think so.
It looks nice over here.
I think so.
It looks great right there.
Well, did you see the airplane just came by over our head?
Yeah.
I think it's avoiding the thunderstorms.
Oh, because it went so low?
Yeah, we don't, that's not normal.
Oh, you're a
Well,
meteorologist.
wasn't it your job to take care of
The
the
weather?
weather?
I could.
Yeah.
I did a little rain dance.
Okay.
It didn't work. I did it.
It was great this afternoon.
Yeah,
Hopefully there's some. This is a little off, but it might be easier to
That's
push
all right.
and go. Well, Gale, do you mind? Do you mind keeping it in the rain? As long as it doesn't thunder and lightning on us, I think we're okay. This is one of many in a series that I do where, in addition to legislating on Beacon Hill and dealing with budgets and dealing with problems and issues and concerns, and there are plenty, and we love it. Peter works with me. Peter Daly is my legislative aide. I thought it was a nice idea. The districts are very manageable geography-wise to get out and introduce people to interesting things. And we have done a number of them. We did the Underground Railroad walks. We have, where else have we walked, Peter? Boardwalk. We've done BCC all around the campus there in the pond. And every time we try to bring a guest who is familiar with that topic. So we have with us today, I'm glad you're here, Gale Powers. As do all of you know Gale? Gale, of course, by day is intimately involved and associated with the famous New Boston Bakery. And on her own...
Join us. We're going to have a tour.
Oh, are you here, Kim, for the tour? Good.
Good.
That's Kim Monis and her daughter. I know Kim. And by night, Gale's involved in a million different organizations, and she has taken it upon herself to learn as much as possible and be an expert on Oak Grove Cemetery and the current residents of Oak Grove Cemetery. So we thought we'd turn it over to Gale. Excuse me?
There's a lot of residents.
A lot. There are over, well, I know from you, it's over 60,000 residents.
That's right.
And if you need to use the restroom at all, Mr. Eaton, I'll just do this. Mr. Tom Eaton, who's worked here for 20 years, is in his office, and he is, as he called himself, the janitor. I like to call him the custodian of the residents here, or the mayor of the residents here, and he makes sure things are well taken care of. He did tell me something that I'm aware of, and you may question this, that Oak Grove Cemetery, this is the only entrance that's open, and it's open all the time. Because there was the Garden Street entrance and there's the Oak Grove Avenue entrance. But, you know, as with many large open spaces, it invites people in for good and for bad. And so if someone comes in here and they're up to mischief and the police come or anybody else comes, it's very easy there's only one way in and one way out. And so it keeps things pretty manageable. And it really is exciting for me to be here and do this walk and talk, because when I grew up on Harding Street, close by, this is where we spent so much of our youth, riding our bikes and having picnics. And we even had, I don't think it was a real one, but when you're a little kid and you know about Lizzie Borden, our most famous resident, we even did a seance or whatever that was. We sat around it and scared ourselves to death sitting there. But I grew up here, and it means an awful lot to me. So thank you, Gale, and thank you all for coming. It's a walk and it's a talk, so it's not quite as brisk a walk as you would like, or you would like. Me as your state rep, you can always feel free to ask or catch me after, or feel free to follow up. But in the meantime, we brought maps that Gale put together, and we're going to give each of you one. It's to keep later on. So
you can come back.
So you can come back on your own and take friends with you.
Encourage that.
Yeah. So anyway, so welcome all, and Gale, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Before we start, just as you know, we're in the street and cars are coming, so just be mindful while we're in there. The cemetery's open to the public. Cars do drive in for whatever reason. I'm sure they're visiting someone. Just be mindful of that. And obviously the walkways, the streets, we are going to use some of the pathways, and actually I did that on purpose. That's the intention of the designer years ago. So a little bit of our tour. I'm hoping to be an hour. I don't want it to be more than that. So I try to started the archway where we are. The cemetery was established in 1855. 1 year before the city of Fall River was incorporated, which was back in 54. It originally started as 47 acres.
How many acres?
47. It now is over 130 through the course of time. Before Oak Grove, the cemeteries that were in use were down on the corner of North Main Street and Brighton Street, old North Burial Ground down that way. Actually, it's Old North Cemetery, called Burial Ground, so big in Boston. These acres here were purchased from Dr. Nathan Durfee for $200 an acre, and this elevated site was chosen over less expensive parcels because of its central location and its natural appropriateness for cemetery use. And you wonder, how is it so central? I live on Bay Street. Well, back in 1855, this was central, because Fall River didn't exist much past up North Main Street, because that was mostly up there was Sonnet, Freetown, and Fall River didn't extend much beyond Columbia Street. Beyond that was the town of Tiverton. So this was central. This is where the city of Troy was. This is where the city of Fall River. So this was central for most of the residents that were here at that time. In return, Dr. Durfee agreed to a parcel on North Main and Highland Avenue, which the city had already acquired for use as a park, which all of you might know now is North Park. The cemetery here, which is something I found very fascinating, is the largest open space the city of Fall River owns for use like this. It's greater than North Park, Ruggles Park, and Kennedy Park all combined. Which
The city proper, because the bioreserve,
Right,
of course,
bioreserve,
would
right.
be, it's over 5,000 acres, 15,000
Right.
acres,
But
but
for that, but I kind of
In
drove
the
by.
city.
I actually drove by Kennedy Park yesterday. I had to go to someplace down there. And I thought, wow, is that possible? But you think how it's not that expansive. It's this big, long plot of land.
Kennedy is 57 acres.
57. So, but it's still it's narrow and long. This is like fat, all over the place. But you don't realize that.
And hilly
And hilly and windy and all that kind of stuff.
How many acres is there? How many?
It's about right now. About 134. That's what Tom told me.
And before you leave, if you give your email address to Peter, we'll send you the pages, an email with all that data.
Yeah, I didn't.
I will make sure we
Yeah,
have
I can get you a file in a second.
Yeah.
It's in
And we'll send it to you.
my laptop, I put it down right now. Oak Grove Cemetery is 134.
Right, but the cemetery actually continues across the street. There's a parcel of
On
land
where?
right across Oak Grove Avenue.
I think just
Oh,
this proper.
where the greenhouse is.
The greenhouse, yeah,
That's
that's not,
technically cemetery.
right, I
land.
don't believe that's included in that. I don't think so. I think that's kind of maintenance, and that kind of thing. And even then, it's probably only a few acres. It's not that many. I remember when I grew up, Cal will too, I remember the greenhouses
Oh,
on
I do
Bullock
too.
Street. And in a heartbeat. Like, I guess we're getting old. Sorry, girls.
That's you, Dan.
We're getting old.
Actually, Paige was also one of the reasons, just quickly, because we have two young members of the group, and it's always exciting to see interested Paige and her twin sister Hope. If you notice, there's a resemblance. 9. Excuse me, I always
So
push her to
close.
9. They're only 8. I always think she's 10, but
Oh, she's the kid who was in the paper the other day.
Yeah,
with the
she was.
tattoo.
It's just
Yeah.
but very
that's her.
interested in history, and it's very unusual for an 8-year-old to catch their attention, right? But this young lady's been not only here, but on other walk-in talks to the State House, in the chambers, meeting people, researching, and it was really her idea and a few others at the last walk-in talk to do this one. And in the meantime, you've done some homework, haven't you? So I hope you're going to ask Gale along the way some questions.
Lizzie Borden.
Well, oh gosh, I know, Hope.
If I don't have the answers, I probably can help you. I have books in my house and when we're done. How's that? Now, for those you don't know, that white truck that's right down there, which is Paul's truck, that's where I live. So, like, when I tell people I'm a 9-iron from the cemetery gates, like, I literally mean it. That's on a good swing on a good day, obviously, because I'm not sure I can hit that far. And I grew up 3 houses that way. Back in '68, my parents bought it. So, like, when Carol tells you we grew up here, it was part of our neighborhood. That was our playground, and we were very mindful and respectful back in the day, picking up gravestones and being respectful of what was in there. A little different than what goes on nowadays, unfortunately. Anyway, we'll continue along. We'll talk about the gates. The buildings, Alexander Lawton, who was a master carver who came to America in 1870 from Scotland, erected the arch in 1873. and subsequently his sons, and he owned Lawson Memorials right on the spot back here where these couple of duplexes are. And for those of us who remember that, there was back into the 1980s, over the course of time, they actually ran that whole time. It's executed in a high Victorian Gothic style with the words, "The shadows have fallen and they wait for the day." The two small buildings on either side, the right-hand side, is the cemetery manager's office, which holds information on the deceased for both Oak Grove and the Old North Cemetery. And the left-hand side, which is obviously the more infamous, back in the day was called the ladies' waiting room, which probably had a facility for the ladies because you came to the cemetery and spent the day visiting with your relatives and probably friends that you met up with. And it was also supposedly the place where the autopsies of Mr. and Mrs. Borden took place.
Is that used now in any way?
It's a break room pretty much right now. It's not, I mean, it's probably like a lunchroom for them. Doesn't sound, but it still has, I have not been in there. I mean, Tom's going to drag me in one day, but it still has a lot of the tiling, a lot of the work, but obviously it's probably has not neglected over the course of time. But that's in our radar for the Friends of Oak Cemetery that I'm a part of, that would like to see restored someday.
Tell us about what's
And
happening with
speaking
this
of
now,
restored,
Gale.
speaking of restored, an exciting piece of news is the archway and all of the masonry was approved from the City Council to a proposal that was submitted by the Friends of Oak Grove Cemetery with the Community Preservation Act, which a lot of you probably are very much aware of. And what they're going to do is, I have to read this because it's like beyond my scope of what I can remember. It includes restoration work to repoint the entire granite edifice and rebuild certain sections at the base of the arch. Ooh, I like that. The masonry in the archway has stood the test of time, but of course nothing lasts forever. The repointing includes replacing mortar in the joints and resetting and dislocating the shifting of some of the pieces of granite. You can see like even what's shifted through, like all of the plants that have grown, those roots go in, and it disintegrates some of the mortar, you know, because it gets worse and worse. Way back when, the early 1900s, probably 1890s, this entire archway was ivy, which is one of the worst things that can happen because it really gets into the mortar joints. And that was they got rid of it a long time ago, which is good. But it really needs some work. They've tried, you can see what places were on the side, the gates there. They've tried to replace the mortar. It's not the same kind. It needs to be the same kind that's kind of in there, so the people that are going to do the work know what it needs, more than what we do, obviously.
Anything about the dates themselves, Gale?
Well, that's another big hunk of money. Hopefully, that was part of the original proposal that was submitted. The CPA committee looked at all of the 43 submittals throughout the city, narrowed it down, eliminated some, and then like we wanted to give everybody something. So for right now, the archway and the masonry is what's going to happen. And at some point, I think the gates and the gates and on the two sides will be some proposal in the future. And originally, that's exactly what it was, to replace them, because even if pieces are missing, if you look at this gate, the one on the right-hand side is exactly the same, so you know what's missing. So you can take that and capture it and mirror it
So
over
you
here.
replace this? You wouldn't just scrape it and paint it?
They want to scrape and paint it and then replace the pieces that are missing. Like those circles on the bottom, if you look at the other side, you can see what's missing.
Yeah, like these things.
Same thing on the front gates. What's missing on one is on the other. Even up at the top. If you notice the cross way up top, this piece is missing. You can tell what needs to be replaced because you have something which is unusual. It's not like it's gone, you have no clue. So at some point, that'll be on the way. All right, we'll move along. We're going to move up. Go way up.
Right? Or to the right?
Well, and we'll talk about after we're hoping to get the James Buffington monument restored.
Down towards Taylor Street.
Back in the day, years ago, you didn't have construction equipment or a backhoe to dig a grave. So the ground had frost. There was no way to put the bodies in the ground. So this was a holding tomb where they would put the bodies in the shelves and the spots where holes, I forget how many bodies. And they would hold them until the frost broke. and the guys could go out and dig the graves. And right now, obviously, it's not necessary anymore with the advent of backhoes and excavation. That's used mostly for this lawn equipment, the gas and weed whackers and all that kind of stuff.
Lots that are outlined in granite with steps like that.
Yep.
Who pays for it?
It was whoever owned it.
The family did it.
Yeah, well,
Would come and take care of it. Nowadays, it's not the case, obviously. Part of what you pay when you buy a grave plot pays perpetual care.
And as a side note, I talked to Mr. Eaton before you all arrived, and I said, well, there's 60,000 people here. Well, when do we run out? What happened? And the northeast corner, so that's near Oak Grove Avenue down there, and closer to the Boston Road, that northeast corner, said is the next frontier, which is not that big, he said, and what they've done is uncovered a few spots over here. Cremation is much more popular than it's ever been and continues to grow and takes less space. He said they should have done one on top of the other, especially in some of these big plots here, but they didn't. So these cremation plots are smaller, dig lower, and it's less costly, and that's what they're finding now. So he said $500 to get a cremation plot instead of spending.
And I'm sure that I can imagine just how many places or spots in the cemetery are not used. That just because I bought a spot for 12 people doesn't mean 12 people are